Thank you all for coming tonight to my senior project. My topic is Aim Higher, Serving God and Country, and I will be going over how I feel service has impacted my life, how it will impact my life, how I've seen it work in my family and those close to me, and most importantly, the command of us to do service through Scripture. So, to start out, I want to show you a few ways that my good friend Merriam-Webster would define service. First of all, he'd say the occupation or function of serving. That's followed by the employment as a servant. Also, the work performed by one that serves, quite obviously, and the contribution to the welfare of others. So going into that, that's some basic definitions of the word service. Now, to set the tone for this presentation, I've got a pretty bold statement here. Serve those who deserve. And then a question to follow that, does everyone deserve to be served? Well, Mark 10, verse 45 says, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve as a ransom, and give his life as a ransom for many." Now, as a follow-up to that verse and the earlier question, do we deserve Christ's sacrifice and service for us? We really do not deserve Christ's sacrifice or the service that he showed. So by that criteria, no one is deserving. But Matthew 25, verse 40 tells us, "The king will reply, 'Truly I tell you, whatever you've done for the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you have done for me.'" That, combined with Christ's model, set forth our command and our duty to serve everyone. So in that view, everyone deserves to be served as a child of God, and anyone can and should serve. So now let's get into my story a little bit, and my story of service more specifically. So my journey of servitude is not as long or as interesting as many of the people I see in this room, but I hope to one day achieve all of your glorious levels of service. In my time at NSC, I've been encouraged to be a servant and cultivated to lead. Here, I've seen how leadership and service go hand in hand, as that image illustrates. As the old saying goes, a good leader should order nothing they themselves wouldn't do. In that way, every good leader should be a servant, and good servants make exceptional leaders. Here, I've had the opportunity to captain successful teams, reside as a student council president, and help teachers and other students, and to live the life of an overcommitted high school student. Though those seemed like pretty impactful experiences, none of them had changed me as much as a similar escapade at my church. I'd helped with Rehoboth Nursery, the sound booth, and for recording and now streaming services, and now as a middle school youth group leader as well, which is pretty awful some days, but it's also a good experience. But more impactful than those was my 2+ year ordeal as a member of the youth director search team committee. Through those 2 years, we hired 2 people, and one took place through Zooms and emails. Luckily, he happened to live about 5 miles away, so it was very helpful in that. But in that process, I learned more about myself than I could have imagined when I accepted the call. Through my serving, I learned to trust God in his vision and ability, but also to understand my potential role as a leader in the world. That combination of my foundation of godly living from NMC and my church as a place of Christian practice, as well as my newly opened eyes to God's plan, opened the door to me to my most life-changing role of service yet. As in that same time of quarantine, I made my decision to enlist in the United States Air Force. There, I will be able to serve in both the very practical and literal sense to go along with my pruning as leader. I'll also lose this, and this will get a little bit smaller, but I'll gain some stuff too, I guess. I'll also be able to, So as this image shows, serving and leading go hand in hand, both in the world and in the church, as the image shows. And like that image, I will use that as a sort of mission statement in my life going forward. Galatians 6, verse 2 says, "Carry each other's burdens, and this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." From this, I see 2 avenues of service, and as we continue, I will illustrate how they fall. That's not good. In line with my future, and I'll show potential examples of what service might look like for me. So the first one I see is help those who cannot help themselves, or maybe without means to help themselves. So if you don't know who this is my grandpa Merle Smulligan receiving some of the first pumps of fresh water out of that newly drilled well in Africa. And as some of the curious onlookers see, they've never seen fresh water or clean water before in their life. So it's quite a scene there. And then the second path is this, to serve to create a community of service, and that will be more of my military future in service. Now, to help me with somewhat my grasp on service, I would like to show you 2 interviews of men that I highly admire, but I also share blood with. This first man probably doesn't deserve an introduction because Whether you like to or not, he's probably had a conversation at length with everyone in this room. But his name is Rick Smulligan. He's a business owner in the area. He serves here as a school board member, and he's also my dad, which is probably the hardest bit of service he's had to do. But that's a picture from a fishing journey we had 2 years ago. And as you can see, my photo library with family is very diverse. So the second person I interviewed is First Lieutenant Kevin Smulligan. He's an officer in the United States Air Force, as well as a registered nurse, and my oldest brother. So without further ado, I'll let those speak for a little bit.
Service. Service is doing what you say you're going to do for somebody when you say you're going to do it. That's service. Service is taking care of a problem that somebody asked you to take care of when you say you're going to do it, how you say you're going to do it, and at the cost you say you're going to do it. That's service.
But to me, service definitely means giving up some privilege you have in order to give something to somebody else, whether that means giving up your Saturday off to go downtown and help somebody move into their house, or help them put in a new porch, or have 6 months of your life away from your spouse and loved ones to go give to your country overseas. Service means giving up something so you can give something else to somebody else. I think Christ calls us to be servants and to give something up. Certainly when we choose to serve Christ, we are giving up our old life. We're giving up our life of sin in order to lay it down for Him in not a passive way. Faith isn't passive, it's very much active. And if you truly believe that you've been given grace, you're going to act upon it and express the love that Jesus showed you to everyone around you, to your neighbor.
There certainly are times when, the business and compassion don't always mix, but you have to make them mix. Sometimes you have to feel sorry for somebody to say, hey, let's get this done the way they want it done. I'm not saying show pity on somebody, but in the same way, only be treating someone the way I would like to be treated if I was in trouble, if I had a problem.
I think it's served very literally, as far as giving up time with loved ones in order to give that time to a greater cause. The country of the United States of America is based on a group of ideas, and I believe in those ideas. I'm willing to sacrifice some of my time with my family in order to make sure those ideas and ideals are upheld. And I believe in the mission of the armed forces. Certainly there's a variety of things that get done, and I might not agree with every one of them, but in general, very much agree that this set of ideals is something that needs to be supported, and the set of ideals and freedom that the United States of America is founded upon is something that is a reflective of the Christian faith. And so I think those ideals are worth fighting for and sacrificing for.
Oh, I think helping people financially, socially, service-wise, helping your neighbor. I think that's part of our Christian walk. If that's not there, you're in it for yourself. That's not really what we're put here to do.
By giving something up to follow Christ every single day, that would be an example of service, something I could certainly do better at, something I'm working on.
The worldly benefits of service certainly are the reciprocation of other people coming back and helping you when you have a problem. That's a worldly reciprocation. As far as spiritual, it just, having your head hit the pillow at night, feeling like you did what would Jesus do? I don't know how else to say that. That's what it is.
I think service keeps your pride in check. What are the worldly benefits? It certainly makes the world better if if everybody just served each other, just like in a good marriage, which is a reflection of Jesus' relationship with the church, if everybody just served each other all the time, we'd have a great world. Just like if you serve each other all the time, you have a great marriage. But pride gets in the way, and pride interferes with that. We think our priorities matter and what we care about matters.
So, here I'll break down what service means in the military sense, right now especially. John 15 verse 13 says, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." As Kevin described in the video, military service right now looks a lot like giving up time with loved ones in order to give that time to a greater cause. This is a point he hit firmly on. Because serving calls you to give up something to serve to or give to someone else. He continued by saying, "I'm willing to sacrifice some of my time with my family in order to make sure those American ideas and ideals are upheld." Another great man, a little bit more known than him, Martin Luther King Jr., is recorded saying, "If a man hasn't discovered something that he will die for, he isn't fit to live." And when you sign up to enlist, they don't tell you you're going to die. Even at the enlistment, they do make sure you know it's a possibility you may encounter in the job. But sacrifice is not limited to the ultimate sacrifice. As Kevin said, it could be as much as sacrificing time with family and friends, a reality that I too will soon know, and the upcoming change that I don't look forward to as much as others in my life. But as the Toby Keith song, American Soldier, goes, "And I will always do my duty, no matter what the price. I've counted up the cost, and I know the sacrifice." Ultimately, sacrifice serves something greater than ourselves, and in a way that not everyone is able or willing to do, rendering sacrifice crucial to service. And now what serving means in a general sense, or maybe in a godly way. Romans 12, verse 6 through 7 says, "We all have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy. If it is in accordance with your faith. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach." So what I see from this is that everyone can and should serve, both in honor of Christ and out of the goodness of their hearts. Everyone has been given the ability, but they must seek the opportunity that Christ has given them. Serving others can be as easy as coaching a youth sports team or sponsoring it, volunteering to fill a need at church, or simply prayerfully supporting others. As Kevin said, when we choose to serve Christ, we are giving up our old life of sin in order to lay it down for Him. And like Dad said, service is a part of our Christian walk. If it's not there, then you're in it for yourself. God doesn't want us to be selfish. He put us here to serve others and to serve Him. I really like this quote from Rick Warren: "Faithful servants never retire. You can retire from your career, but you will never retire from serving God." That's something that I've seen closely in my life, as my grandparents have retired, but not really retired, because for months out of the year they're serving somewhere around the country, around the world, as the picture showed earlier in Africa, and they're always finding ways to help others. And then this final quote from Charles Spurgeon: "One of the greatest rewards that we ever receive from serving God is the permission to still do more for Him." I'm going to read that again. One of the greatest rewards that we will ever receive for serving God is the permission to still do more for Him. So with that, 1 Peter 4 verse 10 says, "Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others, as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms." Jesus is the ultimate servant, even though He is Lord and ruler of all. Therefore, we all need to follow His example and serve. Though it can be, service doesn't have to be hard, and it shouldn't be something dreaded. As Kevin said in the video, service means giving up some privilege you have in order to give it to somebody or someone or somebody else. Whether that means giving up your Saturday off to help someone downtown, or have 6 months of your life away from your spouse and loved ones to give to your country overseas. So with that, and Jesus is the model, who will you serve next?